In this video, we dive into the movie The Revenant. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reactions, so let's get started. It was a weekend of milestones as The Revenant crossed the $300 million mark globally. The Martians soared past $600 million and Star Wars The Force Awakens became only the 12th film in history to top $2 million at a worldwide box office. In addition to seeing its global total, it hit new height. For survival saga The Revenant starring Leonardo DiCaprio topped foreign chart, picking up a lodging $24 million. The story of a fur trapper seeking revenge on the man who left him in the furniture to die debuted in Spain and Brazil last weekend, earning $3.8 million and $1.8 million respectively. The $135 million production was famously hellish, as director J. Drovkas and kept to the breaking point, shooting in remote locations in Canada, and The Revenant is worldwide total stand at $326 million. DreamWorks Animation's Kung Fu Panda 3 scored second place on the foreign chart with $23 million. It got here by continuing to draw a crowd in China, where the family film is performing better than it is domestically, having made $15.4 million last weekend and $101 million since opening in the People's Republic 2 weeks ago. In the US, Kung Fu Panda 3 has earned just under $70 million. Korean crime films A Violent Prosecutor nabbed third place on the chart, earning $19.5 million. Fox's Alvin and the Dropship scored fourth position with a $12.8 million weekend, bringing its global total to the $177.4 million. Two films tied for fifth place, The Hateful Eight and the French comedy Les Hugo with the $8.5 million. The Hateful Eight Quentin Western has earned $115.7 million worldwide since premiering in December. In other news, Fox's The Martian became Radley. Scores for him to top $600 million following its opening in Japan, where it topped the box office with $5.2 million. Disney Star Wars The Force Icon is the third film to gross more than $2 billion globally, joining Avatar and Titanic. But it is only the second film to pull that is during its initial run in theater. Titanic had the benefit of a 2012 re-release before it achieved those lofty numbers. When it comes to evaluating the financial performances of top movies, it is not about what a film grosses at the box office. The true tale is told when production budget, P&A, talent participations, and added costs collide with box office grosses, and initially revenue from VOD to DVD and TV. To get close to that mysterious end of equation, that line is repeating our most valuable blockbuster tournament using data called by seasoned and trusted sources. If you judge the directed story of a mod wilderness travel from all the stories of the adversity and budget of Averon, it would have been here to imagine the picture ending up as the 19th most profitable feature of 2015. But you have to go back to films like Apocalypse is New now to come up with a picture that overcame more adversity to become an absolute masterpiece. Consider that his cinematographer Emmanuel Chivo, Tom Hartley, Dom Halkison, and the rest of the cast would rise early each morning, drive far into the Canadian wilderness to find press and setting, usually left with just enough natural light to compile a scene, or maybe two before heading back, then doing something all over again. The results were what are the hardship, and bought our Oscar, and so did DiCaprio, who finally earned gold after a long string of worthy performances, where he was shut out. The film's backer now Regency, Adnan Maljan, and his chief exec Brad Watson, and James Packer, and the Brad Ratner Pat Pack, China-based Veteran. Reports had the original budget staring at $6 million, then ballooning to $95 million and finally topping out at $135 million. This could easily have been another Heaven's Gate, but it most certainly was not. It was a filmmaker coming off on Oscar for Birdman, putting all his chips on the table. Levi Cantin and Martin Scorsese delivered their career best performances with a DiCaprio, inarguably the worst, most impeccable star now. As for the Revenant, ending up with $61 million and changed net profit after all that adversity. With a 1.17 cash on cash return, it is a fitting for a film that enough out to gauge all over time. Basking in the glow of dozens Oscar nomination Fox's The Revenant led the weekend's international box office with $33.8 million at 838 location in 48 market. The international total for the Leonardo Epic has its $104 million along with $120 million in the US. Godzilla's A Tale of Revenge, set in the American wilderness of 1823, also won the US weekend box office. The UK led the way with $6 million in its second weekend, down only 20%, followed by Mexico with an opening weekend of $5.8 million from 2020 33 second, 200% better than the Mad Max Fury Road. Italy generated a gain of 36% from last weekend to the opening to $4.4 million, and Germany dropped only 22% to $3.5 million with a $15.2 million total after these weeks. The Revenant, which carries a $135 million budget financed by Fox, New Regency and Riptech, finished more than $10 million above Disney's sixth weekend of Star Wars The Force Awakens. The seventh Star Wars movie grossed $23 million internationally to lift the international total to $106 million, led by UK at $173 million. Germany, The Force Awakens is already the number one movie of all time in the US, with $80 million giving the space saga a worldwide total of $1.94 million. It trailed only two titles on that list: Avatar at $2.87 million and Titanic at $2.19 billion. Sony sci fiction actions The Fifth Wave, starring Grace, took in the $15.9 million in 33 international market to finish third on the weekend chart. It opened in the Russia, Brazil, in the UK, and Spain to boost in the foreign total to $27 million, with over 30% of the international rollout still to come. Paramount is the big shot, finished the fourth internationally with the $10.1 million in 52 markets to lift its foreign total to $30 million and its worldwide total to $87 million. The dramedy received a post on the award from Saturday night by the winning top movie prize from the Producers Guild of America. The UK led the way with $6 million in second weekend, down only 20%, followed by Mexico with an opening weekend of $5.3 million from 2033 exactly, 200% better than the Mad Max Fury Road. Italy generated a gain of 36% from last weekend to two-day opening to $4.4 million, and Germany dropped only 22% to $3.5 million, the $15.2 million total after 3 weeks. The Revenant, which carries a $135 million budgeted financed by Fox, New Regency and Wrapped Back, finished more than $10 million above Disney's sixth weekend to Star Wars The Force Awakens. The seventh Star Wars movie grossed $23 million internationally to lift the international total to $1.06 billion, led by UK at $173 million, China at $112.7 million, and Germany. The Force Awakens is already the number one movie of all time in the US, with $80 million giving the space saga a worldwide total of $1.94 billion. It trails only two titles on that list: Avatar at $2.837 billion and Titanic at $2.19 billion. Sony sci-fi fiction actioner The Fifth Wave, starring Grace Moritz, took in the $15.9 million in the international market to finish third on the weekend chart. It opened in Russia, Brazil, and UK. The movie The Revenant is a survival journey of Hugh Glass. He, along with his son and team member, used to hunt animals and sell their skin. One day when they were working, they got attacked by some tribal men. These tribesmen were killing everyone they saw because the daughter of the king was missing. They killed several men and those who remained. For instance, Glossy's son Hawk. Hawk's friend Breezer, Glossy's enemy Johan, captain of the team, and several others ran to save their life. Continue your reading for the explanation of the Revenant ending. They entered the forest where Glass faced the attack of a bear. The bear severely injured his body. Anyhow, Glass saved himself, but the bear has brutally damaged his body. He has several cuts on his body whose pain made him unconscious. When his group member came to see where Cool was, they got to see a bear was lying dead on the body of Glass. Glass was half dead, so it was impossible to take him with them. At last, Captain decided they did good did not take him with him, so he left his son Hawk. After one night when John saw the Glass was now dying and not even losing his hope, he is in the absence of Hawk, and Bridger tried to. Soon after this, Hawk died. When Bridger arrived, he asked about. At first, Bridger did not agree but later got ready. Before leaving, they buried Glass alive in the soul. Glass, using all the energy he was left with, tried to come out of the soil. He went to his son's dead body and decided to take revenge on John. Now he had a reason to live. Glass met with some French people. He saw that the daughter of the tribe man was with them and they were misbehaving with her. Cool got angry for this and he tried to save the girl. When he was hiding, he was saw some tribesmen who is in return. Also saw him before they could attack him. He jumped in the water and they actually walked. Both Captain and Glass went to search John in separate direction. Captain first saw John, but before he could kill John, he killed him. The sound of the gun made Glass go after it. When he visited there, he saw that the captain was dead. He immediately made a plan and put the captain's body on the horse's back. Looking at the man on the horse, John shot him. But what he saw was that the man was not Glass, but the captain. He was confused. And suddenly Glass, who was acting as the captain's dead body, tried to shoot him, but he missed. Actually, this was Glass's plan to make him force. Running after Johan, J arrived at the seahole. At the seahole, Glass killed. John, some tribesmen arrived here, but this time they did not try to harm him. Glass saw that the daughter was with them, so he thought possibly she told everything to them. They then retreated from there. This was the ending of the Revenant movie. Leonardo DiCaprio earned his first Best Actor Academy Award for his performances as Hugh Glass in The Revenant. But the story of what happened to the real Hugh Glass after the bear attack might be even more unbelievable than the film. While the inspiration for masterpieces was a real frontier man by name of Hugh Glass, it's nearly impossible to discern how much of the Revenant is a true story due to the lack of the reliable historical record. Michael's Punk 2002 novel of the same name served as the lost sources material for the movie. However, Punk only spaced his book in the earliest account, which were likely embellished and largely inaccurate. Glass himself left to no written account for his experiences, so it's impossible to determine what really happened on his journey back to civilization through the wilderness of the American frontier. It can be confirmed that Glass was a real person, that he was in effect attacked by a bear, and he died many years after the attack. The Revenant's ending represents one the biggest departure from the existing historical account. The Hollywood Reporter broke down which elements of the Revenant were considered historically accurate and which ones were wholly unique to the Academy Award winning version of the story. The bear attack itself was described in a manner that the historical record acknowledged. After he was left behind is John and a teenager known as Bridges. It is unclear if this was actually the famous mountain mentioned Bridger, as is depicted in the movie. Glass spent weeks journeying back to first Kiowa. The Revenant does not specify how long it took Glass to make the journey, but it does make it clear that it was a lengthy process. It reportedly took Glass 6 weeks to travel the roughly 200 miles between where he was attacked and Foskova, which is inspiring considering there he was moving on a broken leg and with a deep incision covering his body. The Revenant does not specify how long it took classes to make the journey, but it does make it clear that this was a lengthy process. There is no record available for most of the encounters that Glass has in the movie with an Arikara and French hunter. In the Revenant, Hugh Glass is motivated to continue on by his burning desire for vengeance against the man who killed his half-born son. Left Glasses for dead after taking his belonging in reality. Glass never had the son out of the furniture with him and his quest to find was to retrieve his blood rifle. The most widely accepted reason is that he real joined the US Army after this time as a fur trapper with Glass, which is what forced Glasses to spare his life. Glass would have been tried for murder for killing a soldier, so he was unable to take his vengeance. However, Captain did force him to return Glass' beloved rifle. So there was some measure of resolution up for Huge Glass in that regard. The Revenant, on the other hand, sees the two men engaged in a bloody and despaired life or death struggle. Their fight ends with the Glass maiming Fitzgerald and setting him adrift in the stream, where he floats to a group of Arikara to be killed while they spare Glass for rescuing the tattered leader from the French hunter. While that ending is more dramatic and satisfying for the purpose of is not accurate. After finding the Fitzgerald and reclaiming his rifle, the real accused Glass continued to explore the frontier as a fur trapper and a trader. Not much is known about his life during that time of courses, but a historical account details other encounters with the Arikara, one of which reportedly resulted in another extended incident in the wilderness alone. The Anacorvidia Britain indicate that Glass was even shot in the back with an arrow during a particularly violent encounter with a Native American tribe several years after his journey through the wilderness. A year after the bear attack, Glass was actually hired himself by the US Army garrison at Fort Union in North Dakota. He worked as a hunter, bringing meat back for the men stationed there. He wound up establishing himself at Fort Cass in Montana in the winter of 1832, which became a well-known trading post in American West. That would be where huge classes set out from on his last execution into the wilderness. Glass had many run-ins with the Native American tribe, as was typical for the famous mountain men of the American West, and they treated him with a varying degree of friendliness based on the tribe or his level of recognition with them. The Revenant showcases one particularly dangerous tribe in the area Glass explored. Glass and his two companions were killed, scalped and had their belongings taken by the Arikara. His incredible and famous story of the preservedness made him a legend of the American West. But ultimately Glass met the same fate as many other individuals who blazed the frontier. The Revenant is only loosely based on the real account of huge Glass's adventures, and while it hits a major note of Glass being attacked by bear and miraculously making his way back to civilization. In its purest form, cinema is supposed to be enthrall its audiences by transporting them into its make-believe worlds and the characters that inhabit them through visual and auditory simulation. The Revenant, drama film based on the 2002 namesake novel by Michael Punk, goes a step further. It is so metallic and evocative in its depiction of his character, struggles, and urgency that the audiences can feel them against their own skin. With the help of the cinematographer Emmanuel and co-scriptwriter Mark, the film is set in late in 1883 in the seemingly limitless Norway territory of the present-day Glass and his half son are part of a fur trapping expedition led by Captain Andrew Henry. Of the Missouri River, danger lurked in the background, just beyond what naked eyes can see, taking the shape of the native, local fauna, or nature itself. As the trappers get ready to relocate to the next hotspot, they are immersed by an Arikara war party searching for their relief, abducted danger as the horror of a cinematic slaughter unfolds around them. Glasswalk and his survivor manage to escape their brutal attackers via river boat. While out on patrol, Glass is savagely mauled by a grizzly bear on the verge of death. Glass is led by Captain Henry under the care of Hawk, Jim Bridgers, and Johan with the clear instructions that if the Glass were to die, must ensure that the Glass has received a proper burial to earn the $300 that Henry promises him. However, due to the threat of the Arikara still looming over them and Glass showing no sign of dying, Fitzgerald decided to take matter into his own hand and try to suffocate Glass. When Hawk interverses, kills the boy and hides his body. He later convinces Bridger that the Arikara are coming and if they want to survive, they must leave Glass behind. Back at Fort Kiowa, Fitzgerald tells the story of his choosing to Henry, with Bridger being complicated in at least one of Fitzgerald's crimes. However, what none of them ever think can be possible happened from somewhere deep within him. Glass finally desire to survive. He makes the trek back to Fort Kiowa on his own crawling, walking, and riding the hundred of mile and distance with a rare single. Yes, to a degree, of course, is not Quentin, and the Revenant is not Kill Bill. There is no melodrama or sensationalism in the violence that takes place at the end of the former movie. Instead, it is cold, detached, and beautiful in its profound savagery, like the rest of the film. Early in the film, establishes the share between his protagonist and the antagonist simply by demonstrating their respective views on Native American. Those who guided their choices and later fatally culminate for them. Glass had a Pawnee wife who was killed along the rest of her tribe in an attack by US Army. He is still haunted by vision of his wife and a mountain of skull, despite the evident competition with the native of the resources. Glass does not necessarily harbor any ill will toward them. When he discovered that he Pond's refuge, who saved his life, has been hanged by a French hunter, he takes a brief detour from his main path of revenge, killing most of the hunters and filling the fog. On the opposite end of the spectrum is Fitzgerald, during his services in an army. A tribe of Native Americans particularly scabbed him, which has filled the Fitzgerald with the immense hatred from them. This becomes glaringly evident in his treatment of Hawk, ultimately understanding the reason behind those two individual actions can offer us a window to grasp the ending. In Fitzgerald is propelled forward by greed and self-preservation. Glass desire to continue living stand from his endless love for his son. Beyond that is what keep him alive in the harshest environment imaginable. Those words resonate within him as and Fitzgerald John River to the Arikara. With the wounds he has received during their vicious fight, Fitzgerald is not likely to survive the night. After all, he does not have anyone who might have inspired the kind of desperation that Glass displayed while surviving in the American wilderness. So it does not ultimately matter what the Arikara decide. However, it is fundamentally ironic that, of all people, Fitzgerald gets his fate decided by Native American, and that as Glass likely see it, begins in this last scene. After Doc, the Arikara chieftain kills and escapes Fitzgerald. They cross the river in that particular moment. Glass is unsure about his fate. He has spent the past few weeks running away from the Arikara as he has chasing after Fitzgerald. After the Arikara's dispatcher, Glass is taking himself into the mountain for the first time. He finds himself truly alone and aimless, and he can't feel the fire of the vigilance any longer to keep himself going. You came all this way of revenge. Fitzgerald asked him before dying. Well, you invite Glass because they are not nothing gonna bring your boy back. The film becomes ambitious at his point. Glass is another vision of his wife, which might indicate that he will soon die and join his family in his afterlife. However, he continued to breathe loudly and strongly as the credit began rolling, showing that he still might have some willingness to live. If the latter is true, then the determined survivalists will find a way to make it back to the town. 2015 was a noteworthy year of cinema, purely in terms of variety, when it came to the year's most critically acclaimed film releases. Something like the Steven Spielberg historical drama, Bridge of Spices earned the applauses and admiration that one expects when a Spielberg picture is produced nowadays, which is not to say the film does not deserve it. But even revivals of decade-old pop franchises like Star Wars and Mad Max were equally received, more so in certain cases. As the year's general crop of the offering arduous effort and Oscar baiting and of year drama. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association intend to honor the best of the best in film and television like during the upcoming 73rd Golden Globes Award ceremony. The current award season race is pretty open when it came to the movie. As such, it will be trickier than usual to accurate predict which nominees. Nevertheless, we will take a shot at guessing who and what will take which award, using a very unscientific and more than a little subjective method, while at the same time offering some data on who should be recognized at the 2016 Golden Globe. There is not a clear front-runner in its award season 2016 like there has been in the some years past, but John McCarthy team on the Boston Globe's investigation of the Catholic abuses over has gained momentum of late. George Miller's Mad Max sequel is a sort of genre fare that typically does not even get nominated for Best Drama at the Golden Globe, much less stand a chance of winning over the traditional contender. Nevertheless, Fury beat his rare franchise rival that he transported its original action film series during award season, having been recognized by the National Board of Review and a Critics' Choice Award. Director George Hand's period drama about a love affair between two women has earned more than its fair share of critical acclaim for everything from its lead performances to its art direction. Yet Carol remains a dark horse candidate when it comes to the overall award season race. The movie has been recognized by the Toronto and Austin Film Critic Circle and raked up multiple nominations at events like the Independent Spirit Award. So it's not outside in the realm of possibility that it could take the Best Drama prize at the Golden Globe. Brooklyn and Scorpio are among the films nominated at 2016. Producers the Gold Award, and there is a reasonable chance that both of these critically acclaimed title will be nominated for Best Picture at 2016 Academy Award show. However, it's a competitive year in drama category, so it was inevitable that not every critical darling would make the cut at the Golden Globe with only 5 sold available. Some have taken issue with the idea that the Martian is a comedy, but a good humor tale of one effort to stay alive, but he is a trap and alone in the Red Planet is one of 2015 most widely acclaimed movie. In addition to being a major commercial success with a worldwide box office take inside close to $600 million. Competition in the comedy category is not as strong as drama line up either, which makes director Ridley Scott's Space's Adventure the obvious pick to win here at the Golden Globe. Joy is not generally regarded as being filmmakers' debut. Russell's best work, while neither's train wreck nor Spire necessarily break the mold when it came to the comedy movie making. The best comedy content that does have a chance of sneaking in the taking the prize away from the Morton in the big shot. Adam McKay Michael's Philip, the satiric complaint not fiction book about those who foresaw the 2007 housing market collapses, is perhaps a long shot, but then again, So was he ready director of the would deliver the film that will likely end up being nominated for Best Picture at Academy Award. The Revenant takes us back to the Americans furnitures during the early 19th century. Back when life, so to speak, in the unsettled lands of the Montana and the decors hung by the precious thread of the mankind's and nature's giver whim. They will mean legendary American frontiersman and explore huge claws. The expedition takes a bad turn when the company is brutally attacked by a hunting party of Arikara Native American. Bad turn to worse when, while on the run back to the fort, the company loses their best hope of survival, as Glass's mortality wanted in a grizzly bear attack. Captain Henry orders two men, Jim Bridger and Johan, to stay behind with Glasson, to have the boy give his father proper burial when the legendary has finally died. Her fear of the Arikara pushes him to betray his oath and the abandoned Glass, half buried in a frozen ground. But Glass is not die. On the contrary, he claws his way out of the cave and set to the dragging himself bonds and all through all the savage terrain of the frontier. And Arikara is still hunting him back to the outpost where he can find Fitzgerald and show him what it truly takes to bury a dead man. Coming off his big Oscar win for Birdman, it would be easy to simply endorse of immense talent of director, easier still to add and the endorsement for the physically grueling and the dramatically rich performances of Leonardo DiCaprio. However, despite being technically impressive and propelled by a great central performances, that Revenant carries the rough signature of an ambitious yet unrefined experiment. It's core technical and precise in the way a lab experiment is, but fails to be as warm, richly textured and profound as a glorious painting it imagines itself to be. One of the two biggest focal points of the Revenant choices in the directorial style. After fleeting the viewer from scene to the associative scene in the film, like 21 Gram and Babel, in his recent films, chosen to go to the opposite route, stretching scene and sequences out in style similar to his contemporary Alfonso, with a Revenant stages long sing track sequences, giving the film a frantic pace as well as a raw and visceral aesthetic in part to brilliant costuming and production design of the underline. Panic, fatigue, and pain of frontier life. Real emotions mined from actor and extras who in countless loop of the intricate battles on foot and a horseback, boating runs, or even just real-time sequences of men dragging themselves bloody through the mud. And yet, at the same time, taken as a whole, the Revenant's episodic and experimental run of sequences ultimately leaves more seam and takes of the artifice hanging off it than the average motion picture. The film has a 0 to 100 interval pace, silent moment punctuated by artsy, fleeting imagery in the odd snap right into the frantic, our just shoulder section sequences. Taken like that, it's hard not to see the starting and finishing lines of this major sequence to practically hear the director yelling action before after each big scene. That equivalent while entertaining from moment to moment. Ultimately feels like film's soul on a much grander and more experienced scale, but with the same tendency to over in the technique and form rather than the substance and feel. The same can be said of script and Margal. The whole vacancy, which lay a lot of impressionistic visual metaphors and motifs on top of the gritty, is the adaptable whether the Revenant actually earns paper. But what is clear is that notions of the frontier violence and the larger message behind it regard to both man and God don't quite feel at home in the same space as extended scene of brutal animal attacks, rapes, murders. Perhaps the filmmakers wanted to elevate Michael 2002 novel to the level of the gourmet piece and artistic mix of the violence and prose, but they fall short of that marker by a few notches. Performances wise, The Revenant is a tour de force for Leonardo, who spends a lot of the film on screen alone, in the deep end of a grueling physical performances, to which he fully committed. If you were impressed by the super sequences in Wolf of Wall Street, then you are in for 2.5 hours of that same enjoyment. But beyond the physical aspect of the performances, there is not really much to Hugh Glass that is all that impactful. Regardless of what stuck for Leo are justified. Many overlooked performances before him have finally received their Oscar for performances far less impressive than this one. The supporting cast members encompass a lineup of familiar character actors, mostly doing familiar things. Tom Hardy is not too far away from his grunting, mumbling performances in Mad Max, Dark Knight Rise or Lawless Alpha as a grunting, mumbling. His version of Johan does manage to emerge as one of the more layered and interesting characters in a narrative that mostly undeserves character. So there is something to be said for what he bring to the table in non-verbal charisma. Dom Hall, Gleason brings the soulful narrative that made him a tragic figure in X, making Captain Henry a good-hearted but inept leader, trying to keep his fear in check. Among the widely inspected films slated for release within the next 2 months, Oscar-winning directors appear to be in a league of its own. This is not because it's above the competitors in demand, but just because it carries with it some serious baggage. Intense tales of production's nightmare in hostile and unforgiving environment, disagreement over budget and time. All of these things were just the tip of the iceberg in a production that quickly gained a reputation as a living hell. For some time it looked as brutal vegans, a tale of 19th century for trapper Hugh Glass was going to be a complete disaster. People were talking and we were not necessarily saying good things. Then this past July, the first official trailer dropped. People stopped talking about the on-set rumor and complication, switching instead toward a praise. The buzzing rhythm and intensity of the first trailer offered something different, something altogether immense. Since that first trailer, we have gradually seen more of the Revenant and learned a lot more about it. Now as the initial review began to pour in, we have a better idea of exactly what do you expect. With that being said, you can get another look at the film via the Universe TV trailer above. Well below we have compiled a few recent reviews for you to pursue. If you wish to read any of the reviews in their entirety, click on the highlighted link. Some directors might have been tempted to follow an Oscar win by making a cushy comedy in the but the given push yourself and is cute to be limit engage element. He divided conventional wisdom by shooting with the natural light only and in chronological order and has emerged with something we have never seen before. In short, the Revenant must be appreciated first and foremost as a sensory and aesthetic marvel, a brutal hymn to the beauty and terror of the natural world that expert a hypnotic full from the opening film. Its deficiencies as a human drama and metaphysical meditation will take a bit longer to merge. But what is so distinctive about this picture is its unitary control and its fluency. No matter how extended the film's and story is under the director's complete control, and he unfolds great traveling shot to tell it, no disclaimer in some ways to his previous picture. Batman, the movie is as thrilling and painful as a sheet of ice held to the skin. Blend of intensity allows for zero emotional complexity. This is why even his better films have a hard time getting over the hump. It's hard to respond completely to a filmmaker who hits every beat, every note, with the same bug-eyed determination. Far more challenging than every Oscar winner, Birdman, this is in his upload is now. It's a hairy tale true story, one ripe for the Uber film treatment, which is exactly what directors has given his lyric. The film can't be seen outside the context of his Oscar ambitions, and with those perceptions clear. It appears exactly as it is, nagged, feeble, encrusted in the community, theater makeup, and an abundance of the interludes, all in concert to indicate capital importance. The similarities that all these reviews share is that the overall scope of the film is Steve and Leonardo DiCaprio. Hype is a dangerous thing when it comes to cinema. Critics are often to a sort of advanced viewing syndrome where everything appears larger than life and amazing when permitted the opportunity to have the first look. Leonardo earned his first Best Actor Academy Award for his performances as Hugh Glass in a Revenant. But the story of what happened to be real Hugh Glass after the bear attack might be even more unbelievable than the film. While the inspiration for masterpieces was a real frontiersman by the name of Hugh Glass, it's nearly impossible to discern how much of the Revenant is a true story, due to the lack of the reliable historical record. Michael Bank's 2002 novel of the same name served as the loose sources material for the movie. However, Bank only based his book on the earliest account, which while likely embellished and largely inaccurate, Glass himself left no written account of his experiences, so it's impossible to determine what really happened on his journey back to civilization through the wilderness of the American frontier. It can be confirmed that Glass was a real person, that he was in fact attacked by a bear, and he died many years after the attack. The Revenant's ending represents one of the biggest departures from the existing historical account, but everything that happened after the bear attack is up for debate. The Hollywood Reporter broke down which elements of the Revenant were considered historically accurate, and which ones more wholly unique to the Academy Award winning version of the story. The bear attack itself was dispatched in the manner that historical record acknowledges. Glass sustaining many of the same injuries that the real Glass reportedly suffered from after he was left behind by John and a teenager known as Briz. It is unclear if this was actually the famous mountain Mountain Bridger, as is dispatched in the movie. Glass and Oldsman make journeying back to the Fort Kyo. The Revenant does not specify how long it took Glass to make the journey, but it does make it clear that this was a lengthy process. It reportedly took Glass 6 weeks to travel the roughly 200 miles between where he was attacked and fought, which is inspiring considering that he was moving on a broken leg and with deep lacerations covering his body. The Revenant does not specify how long it took Glass to make the journey, but it does make it clear that it was a lengthy process. There is no record available for most of the encounter that Glass has in movie with the Arikara and the French hunter, so the journey itself was largely a creation of Punk, and subsequently, in the Revenant, Hugh Glass is motivated to continue on by his burning desire for against the man who killed his half son. Hagen left Glass for dead after taking his belonging. In reality, Glass never had a son out on the frontier with him, and his quest to find was to retrieve his beloved rifle, which Fitzgerald took when he left for dead. The real Hugh Glass did in effect track the man down at a camp on the high river, but he allowed him to live. Accounts differ as to reason why. The most widely accepted reason is that the real joined the US Army after his time as a fur trapper with Glass, which is what forced Glass to spare his life. Glass would have been tried for the murder of killing a soldier, so he was unable to take his vengeance. However, Captain did for him to return Glass's beloved rifle, so there was some measure of resolution for Hugh Glass in that regard. The Revenant, on the other hand, sees the two men engaged in a bloody and desperate life or death struggle. Their fight ends with the glass maiming and setting him adrift in a stream, where he floats to a group of Arikara to be killed while Chase Bear Glass for rescuing the daughter of the leader from the French hunter. While that ending is more dramatic and satisfying for the purposes of the narrative, it is not accurate. After finding Fitzgerald and reclaiming his rifle, the real Hugh Glass continued to explore the frontier as a fur trapper and trader. Not much is known about his life during that time, of course, but a historical account tell their acquaintance with the Arikara, one of which reportedly resulted in the another extended stint in the wilderness alone. The picture indicate that Glass was even shot in the back with an arrow during a particularly violent encounter with a Native American tribe several years after his journey through the wilderness. Year after the bear attack, Glass was actually hired himself by the U.S. Army garrison at Fort Union in North Dakota. He worked as a hunter, bringing meat back for the men stationed there. He wound up establishing himself at Fort Cass in Montana in the winter of 1832, which became a well-known trading post in the American. That would be where Hugh Glass set out from on his last execution into the wilderness. Glass had many run-ins with the Native American tribe, as was typical for the famous mountain men of the American West, and they treated him with the varying degrees of friendliness based on the tribe or his level of recognition with them. The Revenant showcases one particularly dangerous tribe in the area Glass explored, the Arikara, commonly known as the Reeds by the while out hunting with two other trappers in a spring of 1833. Glass was surrounded by a party of 30 Arikara on a Yellowstone River. Despite him being in an area that was known to be typically safe, Glass and his two companions were killed, scabbed, and had their belongings taken by the Arikara. His incredible and famous story of the perseverance made him a legend of the American West, but ultimately Glass met the same fate as many other individuals who blazed the frontier. The Revenant is only loosely based on a real account of Hugh Glass' adventure, and while it hears a major note of the Glass being attacked by a bear and making his way back to civilization. In 2015, the Revenant emerged as a cinematic tour force, captivating the audiences with his raw and visceral depiction of survival and revenge in the American wilderness, proven by the Revenant bear scene. The Revenant is based on the true story of the Hugh Glass, and the film is a masterclass in storytelling and visual artistry, anchored by the Leonardo stunning award-winning portrayal of Glass in its exploration of human resilience against a backdrop of nature's untamed beauty and brutality, resonated deeply, earning critical acclaim and a host of awards. The Revenant bear scene in which Leonardo Glass is attacked and left near dead by a grizzly bear stands as one of the most intense and memorable sequences in modern cinema, largely due to its brutal realism and its visual fear it evoked. However, after reading the script, was initially unsure of how to approach the bear fight. The actor commented on his confusion. You read the screenplay and it's like, Hugh Glass fight the bear. I was like, so what do I give him a right hook? How do you feed a bear? It's not a fight at all. You are just being mauled and it's like a giant cat throwing around a pile of yarn around the forest. The realization shifted the approach of filming the scene, moving away from the concept of a fight to one of mauling. I certainly don't eat raw basil liver on a regular basis. When you see the movie, you will see my reaction to it. Because, okay, Peyton, it says it all. It was an instinctive reaction. This amount goes beyond mere physical endurance. It's a testament of dedication to delivering a performances, venturing into a realm where few actors are willing to go. It was an acknowledgement of a career defined 22 years after his first Academy Award nomination in 1994, Leonardo notably ended his Oscar drought with his roles as Hugh Glass in The Revenant, has given other Oscar-worthy performances, but he was always up against stiff competition and never quite managed to get the prize. In survival movie The Revenant, the hardship he endured while bringing this true story to life almost certainly have driven him the Oscar, with reviews of The Revenant acknowledging the physical endurance it took to play his role. Filming The Revenant took production drastically. Our its initial $60 million budget as director wanted to show the movie both in sequences and in natural light, and with The Revenant filming location being so remote, cast and crew traveled for most of each day together, leaving fewer hours for filming. These explorations of difficult terrain was the spirit of the Western movie genre, which The Revenant has been compared to, and an even closer comparison could be to one Western which was released in 1971 and for a fraction of the Revenant budget. Both the Revenant and Men in the Wilderness tell the story of a fur trapper who is mauled by a bear and left for dead by his team. He survives and begins a revenge mission through the wilderness. Man in the Wilderness, which stars Richard Harris, better known now as Dumbledore in the first two Harry Potter movies, contain a religious storyline with a central character struggling with his fate and in two movies and differently, with a Revenant ending showing Hugh Glass living alone. Both are based on the same true story. The true story that inspired The Revenant and Man in the Wilderness is that of a trapper Hugh Glass, who Man in the Wilderness renamed Glass really was attacked by a bear and abandoned by the man he was traveling with. It took him 2 months to recover from his injuries. While both movies imply his recovery took much less time, Glass adventured through the wilderness, but he was on a mission to take his beloved rifle back, rather than avenge his son's death, which is a central point in The Revenant. Man in the Wilderness is a product of its time, which includes outdated portrayal of Native American character and a religious angle that is real life. Glass is not mentioned, but Man in the Wilderness does not give the impression that it aimed to be a faithful retelling. The Revenant kept many names the same, and the battle scene at the beginning really happened. There is no evidence that Glass had a son or a Pawnee wife, and little is known about what happened to Hugh Glass after a bear attack. This scene is confirmed to be frighteningly realistic. The Revenue's bear attack scene has been praised for its disturbingly accurate portrayal. Even it was filmed using a combination of a stuntman in a bear suit and CGI, unlike Man in the Wilderness, which used a real bear and a dummy. Watch footage of over 100 bear attack to ensure the Revenant looked as real as possible. And while in Man in the Wilderness, the bear appeared to be attacked for overfood. In The Revenant, Glass accidentally got between a mother bear and her cube, which is more likely to trigger an attack. Both The Revenant and Man in the Wilderness are good movies. Both in The Revenant, talent for playing historical figure and commitment to the role take center stage, and it is hard not to separate the movie from its filming backstory. Told a Hollywood Reporter, I can name 30 or 40 sequences that were some of the most difficult things I have ever had to do. Not historically accurate. The Wilson remains story in this battle movie. The Revenant is both beautiful shot. Man in the Wilderness has a PG rating, which makes sense for a movie that showcases the beauty of the wilderness and respect for the natural world. While it is hard to imagine the Revenant without its blood, guts and the hardship, like the secure in which Glass must live inside a horse cases for warmth. Many survival movies can work with a lower rating by implying the more painful part of surviving, while part of what makes it a Revenant so intense is a combination of violence and beauty, and achieving that to the degree that it did without an R rating without would not have been feasible. The Revenant ending brings harrowing and Oscar-winning survival story that is based on an incredible true story to a close. The Revenant is one of the most critically acclaimed and memorable films of 2010. The movie that finally won Leonardo his Best Actor award at the Oscar. The Revenant has managed to maintain its status as one of the iconic modern Western and revenge stories. But the deep themes leave a lot to be unpacked. It all leads to an ending Odysseus might not have expected and differ from the true story. The Revenant tells the true story of Hugh Glass from the early 1800s who became stranded in the woods after being betrayed by his party and attacked by bear. Despite this, Glass managed to crawl is brought to widow in an attempt to hunt down those who betrayed him and get his revenge. The Revenant features some pretty big name actors starring alongside Tom Hardy, Will Poulter. More, the Revenant's ending include the epic and hard journey of the main characters, but is worth explore further. The Revenant starts out by setting up a pretty tragic situation for Hugh Glass, with his party betraying him by leaving him behind after he is mauled by a grizzly bear. The party's abandonment of Hugh Glass means that Hugh's son has to go with them, but he refuses. At Hardy's Tom's attempt to kill Glass, Hawk tries to stop him, leading to Fitzgerald stabbing Hawk to death. Thus, Glass is left for dead, with him slowly regaining his strength before the beginning to crawl through the wilderness and hunt Dawn. After Glass has a chance to fill, he instead pushes him into the river, allowing him to float downstream to a group of the Arikara Native American. By the end of the film, our research party finds Glass barely clinging on alive, with him explaining that Fitzgerald was the one behind Hawk murder. Thus they head out on a hunt for who was on the run. Glass and the Fitzgerald eventually find each other alone, leading to a fight. After Glass has a chance to kill, he instead pushes him into the river, allowing him to be floated downstream to a group of the Arikara Native American. The Arikara kill and Glass live, having one final conversation with the spirit of his wife. The Revenant ends on a strange note, with the final scene featuring Hugh Glass as he talks to the spirit of his wife. Although his live wife is mentioned throughout the film, this ghostly apparition has some odd implication, possibly hinting that Hugh Glass actually dead. After all, Glass is on the brink of death for most of the film, with his desire for revenge being the only thing that keeps him going. The Revenant's ending could be read as Glass finally allowing himself to die peacefully, joining his wife and son in the afterlife. The Revenant takes place in 1823, and Glass did not die until a decade later in 1833. However, this is not the case. The Revenant is based on the true story of Hugh Glass, and a real figure don't die after the event the Revenant cover. The Revenant takes place in 1823, and Glass did not die until a decade later in 1833. After the events of the film, Glass returned home and continued going on expedition. The appearance of the spirit of Glass's wife does not represent his death, but is instead being symbol of a true familial desire that drives his revenge. Despite revenge being the thing that drives Hugh Glass throughout the Revenant, one of his interesting part about the film's ending is that he did not really end up getting his revenge. Glass's main goal is to reach and presumably kill him, with his rage being the biggest factor behind his ability to survive the bear attack and crawl his way back home. In a more traditional Western revenge movie, the moment that Glass reaches the Fitzgerald would be the triumphant moment, basking in the glow of a dozen Oscar nominations. Fox's The Revenant led the weekend's international box office with $33.8 million at the location's 48th market. The international total for the Leonardo pick has hit $104 million, along with the $120 million in the US Tale of Revenge in the American Wilderness of 1823. The UK led the way with the $6 million in its second weekend. John only 20%, followed by Mexico with an opening weekend of $5.3 million from 2033 screen, 200% better than the Mad Max Fury Road. Italy generated a gain of 36% from last weekend's two-day opening to $4.4 million, and Germany absorbed only 22% to $3.5 million, the $15.2 million total after 3 weeks. The Revenant, which carries a $135 million budget financed by Fox, New Regency and the Rat Pack, finished more than $10 million above Disney's 6th weekend of Star Wars. The Force Awakens, the 7-star war movie, grossed $23 million internationally to lift the international total to $1.06 billion, led by the UK at $173 million, China at $112 million, and Germany $103.5 million. The Force Awakens is already the number 1 movie of all time in the US with $80 million, giving the Space Saga a worldwide total of $1.94 billion. It trails only 2 titles on that list: Avatar at $2.87 billion and Titanic at $2.19 billion. Sony sci-fi fiction actioner The Fifth Wave, starring Grace Moretz, took in $15.9 million in 33 international markets to finish third on the weekend chart. It opened in Russia, Brazil, the UK, and Spain to boost its foreign total to $27.4 million, with over 20% of the international rollout still to come. The Fifth Wave has generated $38 million worldwide, matching its $38 million to budget, which was co-financed by Star Capital. Paramount's The Big Short finished short internationally with $10.1 million in 52 markets to lift its foreign total to $87 million. The dramatic received a boost on the award front Saturday night by winning the top movie prize from the Producers Guild of America. Warner Bros. Rocky spin-off Greed followed in fifth with a $9.4 million in 38 markets to push the international total to $42 million and the worldwide take to $150 million. Underlying star-powered Revenant is heading for a better than expected $35 million to $40 million this weekend in a potential showdown with box office magnet. The Revenant grossed an impressive $2.3 million in a Thursday night preview screening as it expanded from a successful 4-screen run that began on Christmas Day to 337 sites on Friday. Recent expectations had been for a weekend in the $20 million range domestically for The Revenant, or less than half during the 4th weekend of Star Wars. Friday estimate showed The Revenant with $13 million to $15 million on Friday, which will likely Force Awakens. The Revenant has suddenly become the go-to-see film because of the DiCaprio, noted Paul Jennings media analyst with the Rand truck. He may be one of the last movie stars, which is a rare comedy these days. The Stark drama, directed by J. Iñárritu, has performed solidly in its limited release, earning $1.5 million since Christmas at the Ford site, including the nation's 6th best per location, gross with $193 million. The Hollywood World of Force Awakens posted a top 5. DiCaprio portrays Ford trapper Hugh Glass, who was mauled by a deer and left for dead by members of his party during a brutal winter expedition in 1823. The shoot lasted nearly a year and stretched from Canada to South America to capture elastic conditions. The Revenant carries plenty of award season credibility, with a Producers Guild nomination announced Tuesday. American Society of Cinematographers known unveiled Wednesday for Golden Globes nominations and the Screen Actor Guild nod for DiCaprio. The film carries a $135 million price tag with New Regency financing along with the Rat Pack, Alpha Pictures and Empire. The opening a Grimacey horror thriller, The Forest is performing in line with expectations and heading for a $10 million launch at 451 theater. The story centers on an American played by Game of Thrones star Dromer investigating the disappearance of her twin sister in the legendary forest at the base of the Mount Fuji. Star Wars The Force Awakens set a new record Wednesday as the top domestic movie of all time by eclipsing the final total of Avatar. The Force Awakens took in the $6 million domestically on Thursday, its 21st day of release, for a total of the $770 million, and international gross grew by $9 million. Thursday to push the total $821 million, just ahead of $821 million for the 10th spot. Paramount's third weekend of Will Ferrell Mark Wahlberg comedy, That Is Home, will continue to perform solitaire and finish in third place with about $16 million at start, lifting its 17-day total by Sunday to $117 million. Quincy's The Hateful Eight looks likely to finish the frame in fifth with a 50% to decline to about $8 million at 238 site. The Western has grossed about $35 million so far, which over Q&A with Leonardo DiCaprio and Alejandro Iñárritu. New York in its third week of wide release, Oscar-nominated The Revenant rose to the top of the box office with $16 million according to final studio figure. The Revenant's ascendant to the number one empty kind of snowy condition central to the forged and brutal 1820s frontier thriller. The shows from that battered of East Coast and caused hundreds of movie theaters to temporarily close to approximately a 10% bite out of the overall North America. Last week's top film, the Kevin Hart's Ice Cube comedy Ride Along 2, dived heavily to third with the $12.5 million in its second week. A three of poorly reviewed new release, Dirty Grandpa, The Boy and the Fifth Wave, all struggled to make a dent. The top 5 movies at US and Canadian theater Friday through Sunday, followed by a distribution studio, gross and numbers of week in release, as compared to Monday by Ranchak. Star Wars The Force Awakens Disney, $14.786 million, Ride Along to Dirty Grandpa, The Boy Entertainment. The Revenants ascending to the number one amid a kind of snowy condition central to the forged and brutal 1820s brutal thriller. The snowstorms that battered the East Coast and caused hundreds of movie theaters to temporarily close took approximately at a 10% bite out of overall North America received. Last week's top film, the Kevin Hart Ice Cube comedy Ride Along 2, dived heavily to chart with the $12.5 million in its second week. A trio of poorly reviewed new release, Dirty Grandpa, The Boy and the Fifth Wave, all struggle to make a depth. The top 5 movies at US and Canadian theater Friday through Sunday, followed by distribution studio, gross and numbers of week in release, as compiled Monday by Ranchak. With much of the country battling freezing conditions like those in the Revenant, Fox's Frontier Tail Steering was taking its first weekend triumph at the North American box office with $4.6 million Friday. In the Revenant, Leonardo survives brutality in an 18th century wilderness, including a bear attack at the box office. The film nearly fended off another formidable foe, this weekend's Star Wars. The Revenant debuted nationwide to $38 million according to the studio estimate. That puts in a close second place behind Star Wars, The Force Awakens, which grossed $41 million. The opening is surprisingly robust for The Revenant, a grisly revenge from Birdman director Gonzalez based on the pre-release survey. Tonight I can confirm a fresh wave of Leonardo movie is underway. A newly arrived Golden Globe nominee, one battle after another. Just hit makes and it has been fan faring greatest hit. I spent the day checking lineup, talking to programmers and screening key titles. Here is your watch now guide to be role that made him a modern icon. Start with the films that turned DiCaprio into a global name. Titanic is the one that skill make room go quiet. The blend of the romance and disaster still land. It rotates across major platforms, often on Paramount Plus, and is widely rentable in 4K. Inception is your mind plunger with heart. It is a Warner Bros. Title, so it often lands on Max in the United States with 4K rental everywhere. The Revenant won him to Oscar. Look fight on Hulu in many regions, and no Dolby Vision rental option. The Wolf of Wall Street remains a lightning bolt. It regularly appears on Paramount Plus in the US and it's easy to rent if it has rotated. Star power is not hype, it is craft. He picks directors who chase ambition, and their choice shows on screen. DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese have become one of the great screen partnerships. The Departed gave him collide intensity to match a later story. It is a Warner title, so look for it on Max. Shutter Island is a favorite dream that keeps you guessing. It often lands on Paramount Plus. The Wolf of Wall Street. They will just right. Rewards of every reward. You will notice something new in every scene. Then there is the Killers of the Flowers Moon. The praise-sweeping recent epic. It is anchored by DiCaprio's naughty, inward performances. It's a stream on Apple TV Plus, where it is presented in top quality with extras. If you want a single night double feature, pair Departed with Killer. You will see the range of their collaboration in one sitting. One performances keep coming up in my conversation with filmmakers this week. Revolutionary Road DiCaprio plays a suburban dreamer who cannot breathe inside a box. Revolutionary Road rotates between major services. Watch Fight on Paramount Plus, Netflix or Prime Video, depending on your region. If it is not on a subscription day to day, the rental is worth the price. This is the kind of the work that reminds you how he builds a character from the inside out. If you want a tight for film, run that show. He is full turkey to the night. Inception for scale, emotion, and a jaw-dropping final image. The Wolf of Wall Street for comedic jaws and precision. Revolutionary Road for quick devastation. When a prestige title lands on a major streamer, fans go hunting for the actor who defined the era. DiCaprio sits on the top of the that list. He has his strong box office record, and he has collaboration that shifted the craft. Young actors study his choices. Director trusts him with impossible part, and audiences, decade after decade, chop up. That is the cultural story tonight. A new prestige Rob has opened up door again, and viewers are walking back through his work. From Titanic's timeless to Killer of the Flower Moon's moral fog, the film still spark debate. They fill living room and they push conversation about ambition, greed, love, and regret. Cup of your quick. DiCaprio marathon start now. Batman was pick of the year of 2015. There was a confluence of the greatness all throughout their picture. From the performances to the script to their incredible cinematography. All elements of a film whose channel narrative and depth was top notch. The film's success has made Iñárritu for more than on the basis of his previous work. A true Hollywood darling, and with that comes the opportunity to have more of a free hand in his following project. The result is The Revenant, a film blocked with the production budget and scheduling difficulties, but perhaps largely brought into being despite all that by the presence of the Iñárritu behind the camera. Sure, the film was pre-scheduled before the release of Batman, but it would not be the first film that the studio pulled the plug on mid-production, or later wrote off, and having the cranking of Doctorial Mountain in La Charge was surely a factor. In 1823, there are survivors of a Native American attack on a party of trappers struggled through the wilderness toward the safety of military fort. When he killed Greg Glasses is badly mauled by Grizzly Bear to stay with him until he passes, but then kills Glass half-Indian Sonhawk and leaves Glass for dead. Glass survives and embarks on a harrowing journey through the wild, seeking survival and vengeance. This is a long one, so long the latest in a genre of films you might well describe as misery porn. The Revenant clock it an excruciating 156 minutes, and the director has previously made Tiger, Birdman Productions. Birdman is a nice 119 minutes. For the Revenant appear to have lost all sense of restraint, coming up with a narrative so bloated that whatever story it contains is lost in the either of stuff that should have been left on the cutting room floor if it should ever have been filmed at all. The Hateful Eight before the Revenant seemed to have a problem with being obsessed with style over substance. Visual shows backed up former collaborator as cinematographer are on film display in every of the Revenant, and incredibly patient, dangerously so maybe. Approach to reproduction result in something that does look utter wonderful, as close to a realistic glimpses of Purchase America as you are bound to see up on the big screen. But no amount of well shot forest, hollow out with horse corpses, or even born action sequences can make up for deficiencies in storytelling, because there is a little story to be had there. Instead, we get Leonardo beat up, hunted, drowned, frozen, stabbed, and generally mistreated by nature and natives, taking a break between drawn to sit next to yet another campfire. There must be over 20 different campfire scenes in the film, or more. It gets increasingly dull, with a screen to himself for the most part. Glass leave the characterization to dream sequences that occur very now and then, and that never get anything other than the frustratingly predictable. Everything else is glimpsing and healing in a performance that is very good portrayal of pain and suffering in Lord of Mayor, but is deficient in early every other day. There is a difference between a great display affecting ability and what DiCaprio does here, which appear to have been little more than reacting to the grim array of physical challenge that the directors threw at him. DiCaprio is better than that, but he had no opportunity to showcase this is a Revenant, because Glass is easily the worst characters in the story, whose entire motivations revenge for the death of his son. To be taken or Fitzgerald is widely presented after the death of Sidon, with it not being clear for a while if Glass sexually wants revenge or is just trying to survive. We don't want to really interact with it. We're left with the messy show. A little idea of the kind of man that Glass actually is. What drove him before? What kind of ending he sees seeking for himself? What defined him beyond perseverance? The dream sequences are perhaps meant to fulfill the task of fleshing Glass out, but they simply don't. Even the quest for every revenge loses much in the sheer elongation of it. As the film crawls first toward the inciting incident, and then toward this inciting incident, and toward the inevitable resolution at the speed of a snail, is a significant departure from the true story that the Revenant claims inspiration from as well, where Glass sought Fitzgerald and Bridger more out of a desire to get back his personal belonging than to get revenge. And the frustration is added to by the number of sporting characters who are of more fascinating, but who content themselves with a scrap of screen time leftover scene is done with DiCaprio. Tom Hardy's Fitzgerald is a real standout, a desperate man in desperation, whose hatred for the native is matched by his need to find financial success, to repel the must leave behind, a manic, dangerous, and altogether trustworthy man. Tom Hardy plays him with a wonderful sense of Daniel and Victor complex, a trapper who believes himself to be the hero of the story. He is also easily the best written character in the film, so his would not have been particularly hard in a production where she much is happening with just one man in a scene the brief moment when characters actually confer with each about things. mostly in the first half hour, are as rare as gold dust. Fitzgerald raving about Revenant, his insistent effort to end Glass' life, so his own will be more convenient, and his ever angry arrow being directed at a world that won't just give him a break. They are all great. The rest of what exists of the script, not so much. Great to are John Gleason as the captain of the trapper party, and Will Porter as a young Jim Bridger, who would go on to become a famous of his own accord. Gleason's Henry is a man for civilization, worried about losing himself out away from that civilization. And Porter's Bridger is the youth coming to realize that the trade he has chosen and the men he worked with are not as good or clean as he thought they would be. Both men face difficult moral quandaries that test the limit of their mental endurance. Both are observing full of the potential for a proper story. And man, what a great 12 month it's been for Doman Hall. But all of that potential is nurtured by the existence of keeping the camera mostly fixed on Hugh Glass and his churches and road home. Let us also not ignore the film's other great potential plot thread, that of the leader played by Archer Redglood, who sneaks the return of his daughter from the white man who had stolen her, a quest that leaves a bloody trail behind him, but again having the potentially great and fascinating insight into Native American life and culture in such a term and place by making it all about glass. And he goes Grace, trapper of around the end, are the second act in terms of native importance, only for his late entry into the final provide a scene of revolution, a resolution that feels unsatisfying and unearned. Instead, it's all about misery. A story about man's inhumanity to man, I suppose. After told with such limited cast, interactions and appreciation for characters that is hard to believe that it was the same person behind the Birdman, behind the camera on this one. It's perfectly possible to make a good story about a solitary individual going up against the element. Castaway Hall is lost, the event of Martian, more recently. They are suffering to mind, but it required a dedication to lightning film land, not introducing competing subplot. You don't intend to flesh out and resolve properly, and a commitment to characterization through emotional change and reaction to both success and failure. In my opinion, Hugh Glass simply goes through the wearing too much hair. With the film striking everywhere, it is a good thing that it is at least fascinating from a visual standpoint. No, Iñárritu and company are not doing another one-shot masterpiece, but a care taken in every shot, God knows it must have been, considering the production detail, is obvious. Loves his close-up, and at times the camera seems almost locked on DiCaprio's head. But plenty of the opportunities are taken to just show off the luscious landscape of the North American West, the forest, the snowy peaky, the white river. The environment become an innate part of the story. The struggle to get glass phone body up a hill early is in the film is a prime example, as equal emphasis of the principle and scenery combine to really make the impression in audience's mind about the desperation of what is occurring. Brief moment of the amidst all of the white stand out in violent terms too. The cinematography is immense. Iñárritu is not afraid to portray the vision of the American West that is as grimy as it blood-soaked, and its openly battle scene is less cowboy and Indians, and more mud-covered, drugged grey as trapper, and native struggle in the muck, and that comes from the sudden unseen blow, more than from actual combat, reminding very much of David's Air Fury. The aim of this game is to survive, and vigorous fighting is something a requirement. Of course, as with so much else, it goes to for the blood and guts at time, such as in an overly lengthy sequences, where Glass finds shelter in the hollowed carcasses of dead horse, Much has been made of the bear attack scene. For me, it was hit and miss, and I can't bring myself to praise it even as others have done. For sure, there is some excellent CJ work being done there, but I had an attack of my uncanny valley personally, animate seeming to surreal, ways being fake, that I could not help but notice the unreality of it. If that make any sense, I was also drawn out of the film's dejective resolution by the bear bed forging the camera up. A very odd choice I felt matched by part of the final where actor engaged in combat seemed to be bumped into the camera. You only have to scratch the surface to see where the Revenant was going wrong. What with his atrociously dragged out shooting schedule and balanced new turn over environmental difficulties and some disturbing the allegation of a director who did not have enough care for the physical safety of those working underneath him. The last point in particular always tend to set me off, but here I am almost more annoyed. Obsession with the natural lighting, a decision that means so much focus on the visual side, of things occur to the detriment of plot. Also, I personally believe it's hard to make something really worthwhile where you might have 90 minutes a day to actually shoot. That is not to say that there is need something remarkable in a way that such a vision might be crafted, but it simply was not something that I am blowed over by give me character, give me script, give me plot, and if you need to bring in some stage light to do it to be it. Ultimately, The Revenant is a disappointing affair. Birdman was a film that had an excess in great characters, great script work, great use of music, and a visual direction that I would describe as being in top of 5 any film I have ever seen. The Revenant has only one of those positive traits, and while a film that is good looking will always be capable of getting good, for me it is simply missing too much else. Our main characters that I am engaged with supporting character who get the time that they deserve, a good script, a good soundtrack, and a good narrative. The Revenant may go on to be an award season, and if DiCaprio was to finally win big, I would not him too much, even with my innate respecting of Gong being handed out to those that are due. But it was neither a performance nor a film that I greatly enjoyed, not recommended. Yesterday I had a chance to go to an early screening for the Revenant directed by the Iñárritu and its tricky film to review. Iñárritu directed last year's Birdman, which I happen to think is one of the most awaited films of recent year. To me, the event is a huge step up from the film, but your enjoyment of the film will entirely depend on the type of movie you like to watch. So I have come up with these some questions so you can decide whatever to see or not. Do you require likable character that show humanity to others? If yes, then the film is exactly 3 brief moments of humanity. The bond between Hugh Glass and his son, a Native American man who rescues Glass stand to the wound and make a shelter. Domhnall Gleeson's Captain Henry is a good honorable man who archie moments don't end well, so they are not exact motivating or encouraging in any way. Every other character in that film, he only cares about himself and his own survival. It's certainly not the Western hero we used to get from like of Johan Vine, that's for sure. The movie makes Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven look like a birthday party. If yes, then you may find the Revenant exciting. I don't so fair moment was thought for so much. I closed my eyes a couple of times. However, it was so immersive and now that I did find it compelling. I had prepared myself for the violence, so that helped, but even then it was brutal. You could say I pushed myself was out of my comfort zone for this one, but it's good to do that every now and then. Much has been bear attack. It is long and shocking. You watch and wonder how the heck did they go that? I really have no idea. I know they used a combination of a real beer and but it was flawless. As a film fan, I love moment in a movie I can't figure out. Oddly enough, the movie more violent part I felt were the Indian warfare. It is relentless in showing person after person gets paired with an internal arrow sometime through to the head, at a time completely through the body. I have never seen violence quake like that before, and I am not going to deny it impacted me. If yes, then the Revenant probably is not for you. At 156 minutes, it is a slow trip, and not yet varied in what it is suspecting. We go from glass getting attacked, getting abandoned, moving around on the ground, finding food, hiding from Indians, stealing a horse, building fire, etc. Basically surviving day after day. It makes a Martian feels like a joyride. There really is not one moment of levity or break from the horrors of the West. What I mean by his questions is Leonardo characters does not have much to him. There are a few sequences where he dreams of his wife and better life, but we hardly hear him talk. He is reviving, surviving. It is the element that have all the characters and personality. That said, it is a tremendous performances and DiCaprio give it his all and it's hard to not admire that. The same is true for all the other role. The Tom Hardy is great, Domhnall Gleeson is great. I love the traditions but love the new stuff where they are trying, experimenting and taking risks. I will give directors like the Iñárritu cinematographer but of young leads than normal because it is so bold and daring. Just a night shot around a fire, I was stunned by. How did they do that using so artificial light? Amazing. I really. The nature often wreak havoc in the mind of believer. As I try to reconcile the hardship and challenges nature inflict on the human condition with our insistence on a loving, merciful God. The best possible explanations comes from the centuries of theological and debate, but it is a simple one. God honors God's creation on its own terms. Nature will be as nature needs to be, based on the apertures and limit of the essence and design. Most every belief acknowledges their nature is not God's moral agent of reward and punishment because ancient biblical understanding was framed in a more primitive mindset. The same applies to the human nature, particularly regarding man's inhumanity to man. The suffering inflicted upon one another through God's gift for free will certainly vindicate God from my blame. God's grace may empower and expand the good we choose, but with the evil we display ground itself in our freedom to act against conscience and the inherent moral accord of the human psyche. A psyche illuminate the formed by collective and for believers, God inspired. Wisdom on display in the Ten Commandments, teaching our confusions, and many, many more. God is an ever present but silent force in this narrative because of the way directors his story. The film, the script, and the scenery are evoke questions about fate, morality, nature, and humanity. The movie is more than just about one person's survival, in part because characters invoke and in some cases are false understandingly. In key sense, there is an implied sense throughout the film that only is the protagonist's life at stake, but so too his soul. All the characters hang in the balance between good and evil, with many, if not all, dropping the scale to the dark side, as we the audiences look on upon their survival of the fittest and so much more. The Revenant is a fascinating cinematic exploration of one man's attempt to survive the cruel, dark impulses of the human heart and will in context of all of nature's meanings. It is revenge that animate him or something else entirely. The man in question is Hugh Glass, as historical American figure of the 1820 Western expansion ad for trade, played by Leonardo, implying a ritual of the great method acting tradition with aplomb in a captivating performances. Leonardo revealed the inner struggle of a man confronting fears and prejudices, hate and greed on grand display among the wearing French and American fur traders and Native American tribe for home betrayal and murder are often excused for living. Furthermore, Hughes has many inner demons of his own, while at the same time he covers intelligence and his love and devotion toward his son Hawk. Regardless of which movie dropped the weekend box office is this weekend. The scorching estimated $38 million debut of The Revenant is an enormous triumph for all parties. Glass Leonardo, fourth biggest opening weekend ever behind Shutter Island. The Great Gatsby $51 million and Inception $62 million with $39 million total after $1.55 million earned from 2 weeks of four theater play starting on Christmas. In just a day or two away from topping the entire $42 million domestic total of, and when it hits the $105 million domestic, which I am willing to guess that it will relatively quickly, the film will have outgrossed all of films up to this point combined at the domestic box office. 20th Century Fox, which is distributed but did not produce the picture, does not just have a major score contender this weekend. It has a genuine commercial success on its hand. Now for Arikara, the film cost New Regency $135 million to produce, so even a vaguely lazy performances will leave the picture in need of a strong overseas run. As for domestic Lone Survivor, we did not turn into a serious Oscar contender. It got a couple of technical notes. Opened with $37 million on this weekend in 2014 and went on to earn $125 million domestic. That seems about right for this one as well, with a caveat that his leg should be even longer thanks to the whole Leonardo finally win the Oscar narrative that is all but assured after this baffled debut. If it plays closer to Grand Torneo, opened wide on this weekend with $29 million back in 2009 and ended up with the $149 million domestic. It will get to be $191 million domestic and will be the actor's third biggest domestic winner behind Inception and Titanic. Or it could just fall somewhere between the $116 million total of Wolf of Wall Street and the $164 million total of Catch Me. If you can, back in 2002, we will know when we know. Regarding foreign box office might, Fox has shown itself to be magic, with overseas box office time and time again, even with smaller films like The Counselor. And while it is not an apple to apple comparison, the filmmaker's Oscar last anyone dipped out my somewhat long in shake post. Few percentage actors have so fully committed to the notion of cinema as an endurance test as Antithesis himself. The Odyssey and an aggrieved 19th century forest man well beyond their usual limit in the Revenant. Blake has held but considerably more beautiful. This nightmarish plunge into a formidable American outback is a movie of battles, violence, grueling intensity, and continually breathtaking imagery. A feat of high-wire filmmaking to surpass even and G.P. Emanuel work on last year's Oscar-winning The Birdman. Yet, in attempting to merge a Western revenge thriller and meditative epic in the Terrence Malick mold, and a lost in the wilderness production of near Harrowing insanity, the Revenant increasingly succumb to the air of grim that has made much of past work. It's an imposing vision to be sure, but also an inflected and emotionally stunned one despite an encore performances are furious to the 100% commitment. Hard to recognize the, he may be under so much blood, grim, and the unwashed mountain. Man, DiCaprio will boast the commercial prospectus of Fox's Not So Merry Christmas Day release, which will lean heavily on its award friendly to overcome audience resistance to its considerable length and extreme carnage. While the many cases of human and animal savagery are doled out over the 156-minute running term, they are to a brutal can you top this degree captured in a long, unbroken takes that have become an visual signature. Minute of one short digital game key abertment that result in a film of robust, overwhelming physicality, filled with the striking passage of pure cinema, yet ultimately enthralled to recute self-admiring sensibility that keeps at bay. The film was adapted by Anne Markel Smith from the Michael Punk's 2002 fact-based novel, which is set in the 1832 to 24 in a territories that know makeup, the directors Montana, Wyoming, and Nebraska, while the film never specifies exactly where and when it's taking place, took place in Canada and faithfully centered around a fictionalized vision of Hugh Glass, a real life of man of the West who worked for the Rocky Mountain Fargo, skillfully guiding beaver trapper deep into hostile terrain. There is a life of hard work, scare rations, and frequent peril. As we witness frustrated when the men are attacked without warning by Arikara warriors. The film established its approach immediately in its harrowing early sequences, beginning with a single unbroken shot in which Sansa's mount by the second, only to be relieved by the arrow that comes were hurtling out of nowhere to connect with a man's throat. As the surviving trappers flee with whatever felt they can salvage, we feel not just ambushed but surrounded by the attackers lurking just off screen. But a dense tree is looming in the fox's composition, and perhaps most of all by a sound design, which transforms the music of babbling brook, rustling trees, hoof-beat, falling bodies, and engaged scream into a wild symphony of woodland jaws. This sound will be joined in due course by scamato and alva note, artfully modulated, never repetitive score which began as a series of low, sight-like rumble that gather melodic force and power as the film progresses. In short, the Revenant must be appreciated first and foremost as a sensory and aesthetic marvel, a brutal hymen to be beauty and terror of the nature world that exerts a hypnotic pull from the opening frame. Its deficiencies as a human drama and a metaphysical meditation will take a bit longer to emerge. Glass is traveling with his teenage son, Hawk, Forrest, are descended of the pioneer tribe on his mother's side, and the two regard each other with an understandably for fears. The other trappers, led by the principal Capt. Andrew Henry, prove respectful enough of father and son, but the single exception of John, and a Nasiri heir to well, who makes no secret of the fact that his commitment to the party's mission is purely mercenary. And so there is trouble upon even before Glass venture out alone and is mauled by a grizzly bear in what must surely be the most civil scene of an animal attack on a human committed on the screen, although more elastic and protective for being shot in a single take. Glass kills a bear, but not before it all, but kill him, leaving horrific wound in his chest, back and throat, and rendering him unable to speak or walk. The audience starts fabricating the injured party out a rocky and eventually snowy train soon threatened the party's safety, and it's decided that Glass will be left behind with Hawk, Fitzgerald, and a young man, Jim Brazier, so that he can receive a proper burial when he inevitably dies. Things don't go according to plan, to say the least, and the full murderous mayor of Fitzgerald Rutledge is revealed as he kills Hawk and he leaves Glass for dead, with the pitiably naive Bridger is though. But alas for Vegas became its own from survival instinct, and Glass managed to claw his way out of a shallow grave and find water and shelter, and stay alive long enough for his wound to begin to heal. Since his characters can barely talk and has almost no one to talk to, DiCaprio must convey Glass' interior journey almost entirely through grunts, wheezes, and sharp, pained exhalation of breath, missing of the camera in poetic close-up. Often he does this while dragging his crowd and battered body over rock and soil, a preferable method of transport really to being washed downstream by a river or vault off a cliff on the back of a horse. These and the other unmanageable detour, plus the near constant threat of death from predators, starvation, and exposure, calls this into a potent study of human endurance and isolation that make up the film's strong mid-section. An unofficial retreat of the Richard C. Mann the wilderness, which starred Richard Harris as Glass. Indigenous characters hovering on the privacy of the drama, including the hike, a traveler who comes to Glass aid, an elk dog, and Anikara warrior trying to track down his daughter, who has been captured by a band of French trappers. But the most significant alternation here is the wholesale invasion of Hawk, a touch that aimed to humanize Glass, nudge him closer to right side of history, and instill in him even more primal hunger for revenge. Yet no fault of DiCaprio's or good luck, the father-son relationship never develops the sufficient emotional conviction to achieve the desired impact. It's immediately clear that Hawk exists solely so he can die and, as in melodrama, by watching on the loss of a child, provide an extra twist of the emotional knife, here and there. Iñárritu implies costly flashback and to convey Glass' love for Hawk and his pony mother. But these visuals feel like spectral and are reminders in some aspect of the commuting with the dead anti-hero of beautiful while the Revenant is many curves above that career nature. It has marked the director's return to the same glum mood of near cosmic despair and babble after his rare foray into clinical showbiz comedy with the Birdman. In all these films, the storytelling can quite disguise a lateness and lack of the modulation that suggests the Steve's talent is for luring his audiences, sometimes artfully, sometimes merely artfully, into submission. The final reckoning between Glass and the Fitzgerald is gripping distress, and audience is hoping to see payback exacted in full with the film satisfaction. But here and elsewhere, camera with its creeping, darting moment and still the 360-degree turn does not seem to observe the action so much as instigated. The long take action sequences begin to feel almost sadistic in their pre-planning development that should be shocking instead take on air of the grinding predictability. And at every step the performances suggest a behind-the-scene experiences that could not have been much less arduous than the characters on screen audio. Whether he is sinking his teeth into freshly killed meat, he is wound with a torch or stripping nagged and shitting himself in a still warm animal carcasses, has never been this fairer or suffered from his art quite so widely on screen. He is frequently worthless, stripped to the bone, turned may not match the live wire energy and inventiveness of his scenic in the wolf of Wall Street. Hardly whose dialogue is perhaps the last intelligible element of the sound design, makes a coolly unnerving villain those ruthless lies in his gift for bullying, persuasion as well as his brute strength. He has another excellent on-screen opponent in Gilson, ex-Brooklyn anti-forthcoming Star Wars. The Force Awakens cast very effectively, engaged up as the righteous man who takes Glass' mistreatment as a personal insult, and Howard makes a fleeting impression as the Arikara trencher who emerges every now and then to reset the presence of his people. In movie that is ultimately not a tale of an indigenous in tragedy, but of a wild man's retribution. Perhaps the most useful in comparison in the respect is with the New World. Mary's 2005 films about the initially charmed, ultimately tragic first encounter between the Jamestown settlers and the Native American tribe whose way of life they so drastically upended. Both films were shot by the and feature contributions by production designer Jack Fisk and costume designer Those relations have sourced by the term inheritors. Movie picks up roughly hook centuries later, when the scourge of American imperialism has long since blooded and corrupted this one identical paradise. But the key difference here is not just of setting, but also of the sensibility. The title of the Revenant aims to give his resonant Avengers a spiritual dimension, but in attempting to steer his dark, fatalistic visions towards something which generally and Catholic has managed to appropriate the beauty of the Malik's filmmaking, but none of its sovereignty. Another word for which might be humanity. There is plenty of the amazement here, to be sure, but also little in a way of grace. The films from directors or last year's Academy Award, not for the faint of heart. It tells the embellished true life tale of high class, an early 10th century Ford trader who is left for dead after a brutal bear attack in the snowy wilderness, while he is improbable one of his companions murders his son in front of his eye and essentially buries him alive. Glass drags his way out of the grave and slowly, after a brutal and attempt hard to watch, the film's beauty makes it impossible to turn away. Certainly, than the more Jokata territory, The Revenant is more breathtaking than any other films I have seen. The eerie score emphasizing nature's cake, gurgles and whisper to make you feel as if you are really there. Much praise has already been given to DiCaprio, who totally commit to the role, harrowing physical demand. It is deserved he is conveys glass interior, journey almost entirely without dialogue, working only with the facial expression and labored grunt and visas. I have always found the movies of him. From the word go, there was little doubt that The Revenant would be unlike most Hollywood fare, particularly in light of director's previous work. On paper's follow after his Oscar-winning 2014 film Birdman sounded like it had all the making of a modern apocalypse now, an incredibly talented cast, harrowing source material and report of the equally troubled shoot in remote local. Other warming signs were there. The Revenant looked and felt like the sort of big-budget amateur experiment that filmmakers often get to make after a Best Picture win. The kind of film that either refreshes and burns as an unmitigated commercial and critical disaster, or despite the difficulties in bringing it to the screen become an instant classic. Well, I am here to tell you that The Revenant is neither a disaster or any immediate classic, but it is the one hell of a movie-going experiences based on Michael Punk novel about real-life Fortism Hugh Glass. The Revenant is a classic tale of revenge that is one of the wildest ways ever put on screen. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Glass, a skilled tracker guiding a large fur-trapping expedition into the uncharted wilderness after an attack from the indigenous Arikara kill or wanted most of it. The film first questions everyone has asked about the Revenant since I saw it is, do you think Leo will win the Oscar? My answer has generally been some irritation after I have seen less committed performances win Academy Award. I can't think what more the actor could possibly to do to nab himself one of those coveted gold status at this point. Just when you think things can't get worse, For DiCaprio's character, they inevitably get much worse. Glass hits rock bottom early on and spent the rest of the film caringly toward hell. It gets so bad for him that there were moments when I actually rooted for him to just give up and die. His physical and emotional gauntlet is a trial to even worse. As character gasps and crawls across the backcountry, you can almost see him reaching for the Oscar with every new hardship. After most of the film's marketing has focused on DiCaprio, there are other great performances on display in The Revenant. Hardy is positively well as Fitzgerald, Trapper, whose driver from his self-preservation is almost as fury as Glass' own desire for revenge. Co-star Gleason star cap of a stellar year as a principal but even famed dork. The Mazy Runner stars in a performances as Jim Pager, a young scout torn between his loyalty to Glass and fear of Fitz. For cinephile of the real star of the show is sure to be cinematographer, the director of the photography behind such film as a new word. Children of Man, Gravity, and most recently Birdman turns in some of his finest work. In one particularly thrilling horseback chase, an apparently free floating camera is anchored to glass like a third person camera in a video game might be, shifting with the trapper's point of view as he turned to shoot at his pursuit. It unlike anything most movies have been before and just one of my brilliantly shot sequences in the film. The Revenant is a beautiful but grueling movie from start to finish. Not for the faint of heart or easily upset, it's a nearly wordless 2.5 hour journey to the deepest pit of human suffering. I know that does not sound like a glowing endorsement and is not a really. This movie may very well not be for you. Personally, I don't know that I ever want to see or rather put myself through the Revenant again. But if you are feeling brave, then this is kind of film worth experiencing at least once. And on the biggest screen you can find. Just don't forget to bundle up. There is a horror for more to the films than a straight revenge tale. The film's whole sequences of events, the one that lead to Glass Faithful, an incredibly bloody brush with a murder grizzly, is triggered by a domino effect of gruesome conflict. The first and most shocking case is a tribe of Native American attacks Glass camp seemingly intent on stealing their haul of animal skin. In reality, whose short Batman is what looked like a single flowing steak, pulls off a different yet similarly mesmerizing technical feat here. His handheld camera swirls and glides across the rapids, snow and earthy forest. It also gets in close to study his character. Our battle sequences near the Revenant opening has a starting emergency. The lens whipping back and forth as a camp full of crapper is chock full of arrow. Once that sequence is over, Emmanuel crystal clear digital cinematography has become all enveloping. Simply is beard. 19th century man clinging to survival. Hardly really is a scare fantasy, psychopathic mercenary with a design on buying some land down south. It's a word of violence, cruelty, and above all suppression. Rival groups of people killing and being killed, attacking and counter, attacking murder follows murder, revenge follows revenge. In a final analysis, even betrayal makes sense from a certain standpoint. In a brutal word, Script's second decision can have far-reaching the consequences. The Revenant respect it all not so much as a horror but as tragic inevitability. We can only guess at what the author and filmmakers went through to capture such an authentic-looking movie. Taken at face value, DiCaprio's order looked positively harrowing within the first hour alone. He has eaten the marrow from the bone of murdering bear scarces, bitten the head of an apparently live fish, and donned the steaming liver of a fallen buffalo. There is more to be DiCaprio's contribution to the film than stunt acting. However, it's also a captivating physical performances. His face conveying horror, determination, and despair in roughly equal part. The supporting cast is also worth animation. Tom Gleason as a lily-livered captain, Will Porter as a young tracker, caught into leaving class behind by the imposing Fitzgerald. Startlingly violent but also unspeakably beautiful. The Revenant is a real cinematic achievement. At times, it has the earthy mania Warner hearts. And it has the lyrical elegance of a pick. Only one or two late shot don't quite ring true. The old dream sequence is dripping over from simpline potty to changing symbolism. Yet the Revenant remains extraordinary, with at least the moment that made this writer gasp. Quite an achievement in era of the bludgeoning special effect. Another year and a chance for the Academy to overlook. Leonardo for his role in a become a bite of joke at this point. As one of the nation's most loved actors, is continuously passed over. No matter how outlandish or brilliant, while I enjoy DiCaprio, none of his most recent efforts have moved me. However, I applaud the fact that no matter what, he tries and tries again year after year. In 2015, something strange happened, something no one could have expected. DiCaprio got genuine Oscar buzz for his latest role in The Revenant, while both fans and DiCaprio himself are probably holding out these expectations until the Academy accounts his nominees later on in January. This is definitely the most praised actor has gotten a flatter. Let's not forget that the actor. If you are still reading despite my long intro, let me cut to the chase and answer the above question in order. Probably not, maybe yes, but most likely not Best Picture. And at 6, yes, this is a movie. If you have not read a synopsis of the plot, The Revenant can be conveniently summed up by a 3-minute segment where DiCaprio's character. Since most of the movie is about DiCaprio's acting, I will get it out of the way before I touch upon everything else. He did a competent job in the role, but nothing particularly worthy of an Oscar. On the other hand, Tom Hardy did an unbelievable good job as the villainess. Felt much more complex character and should be a shoe in for best supporting actor. The rest of the cast featuring Dom Hall, Gleason's continuing his lucky streak after his role of General Hux in December, Star Wars, The Force Awakens and a guide from the Maze Runner series show off some services acting job here as well. However, the real star deserving of all the Oscar ever would be movie cinematographer. Because holy crap, is the movie gorgeous. Nearly ever since this movie, no matter if it was a brutal Native American attack at the beginning, or the quiet moment where Glass attempt to start a fire, could be framed and hung up in an art museum. The skyline seemed to go on to indefinitely. The white snow visually sticking as it gradually gets murder or bloater. The action scenes that were largely filmed in one take only services to make the movie actually more striking and will keep you on the edge of your seat. The biggest downside of the film is that while all these things sound great on paper, they don't really mesh well on the Oscar, while the imagery and music tried to seem like an austere, deeper reflection on man's relationship with the nature. It made it very jarring when the movie cuts back to Glass channeling his inner. Despite its erratic tone, an Academy Award winning Face Fast in following Birdman huge success. The story of legendary frontiersman Hugh Glass is brought to life sourced from the pages of Michael novel The Revenant, leading the cast of this true to life to tale of love. Courage and redemption is the ever-brilliant Leonardo in arguably his best role to date as Hugh Glass, who went through many grueling tasks to fulfill this role, such as sleeping in an animal carcass and eating raw fish and visceral liver. Will surely soon to be a 3-time Oscar-winning cinematographer, making the landmark decision to film The Revenant in all natural light. It became apparent early on that this was going to be a truly beautiful piece of cinema. Has created one of the best, if not the best looking film of all time. There is not a single shot in the Revenant which does not look spectacular along with the excellent director. Amazing cinematography, legendary composer was brought into a score the film. Villiers much of the buzz around the Revenant is dropped at look it's a fascinating story. These films might finally bring Leonardo DiCaprio that will documented search for an Oscar. His performances as Glass were spellbinding, a shining light during a year where many performances were below par in some of the year's biggest films. It's not what Glass says that is a brilliance, it's a steely determination to show that love and redemption have no boundaries. Not all about old Leo Top. Tom Hardy's performances as John Fitzgerald is also fantastic, using the same pure he brought to Ben and creating a villain the viewer just love to hate. Tom Hardy gives a performance of such frightening ferocity that is hard to believe. He has gone almost unnoticed in this award season until his first award nomination. However, in context of him, he really does provide the balance with the classes, as well as Hardy, Dorman Hall, Grayson, and Will Poitier both provide the moment of excellence as Andrew Henry and Jim Bridger respectively. The Revenant has gone down in history as one of the longest and most grueling shots in cinematic history, which included several mutant from the crew and it pushed the cast and director to their absolute limit. But to create a film of this sheer beauty and magnitude, sacrifices must be made, and in the end it's possible to argue that it was not worth it, as a Revenant truly is spectacular piece of cinema and will surely add to 3 Golden Gloves of this year Oscar, expecting to pick up Best Director, Leading Actor and Cinematography. If not even the big one is Best Picture. An Academy Award winning director falling but man huge success. The story of legendary frontman Hugh Glass is brought to life sourced from the pages of Michael Punk's novel. The Revenant leading the cast of this trio to life tale of love, coverage and the redemption is the ever brilliant Leonardo DiCaprio in the arguably his best role to date as Hugh Glass, who went through many grueling tasks to fulfill this role such as sleeping